Everyone, thank you for joining this afternoon session at the Jadu Academy. We are joined today by Central Bedfordshire Council, and they'll be talking to you today about Jadu usage, automating school transport applications with a particular focus on QRoutes and some other aspects of work that they've done also. And without further ado, I would like to introduce you to Aubrey Smith. We've been working with Aubrey for many years at Jadu. Brilliant customer for us, partnership working, and Aubrey's a business analyst and will now take over. Thank you, Aubrey.
Hi, thank you, Abrina. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me just take you over to the agenda. I'm going to do an introduction, introduce myself, tell you how Central Bedfordshire used the Jadu platform, and then we'll talk through how we've used it to automate school transport applications. If we do have time at the end, I've got a couple of other of our processes we can take you through that we've implemented. Just an introduction then. So I'm Aubrey. I'm a member of the Digital Customer Excellence team at Central Bedfordshire, very much concentrating on our customer pathways and how residents interact with the council. Central Bedfordshire is a unitary authority, so we're doing all services. 716,000 square kilometres. It's the 11th largest in the country and one of the least densely populated. There's around 280,000 people that live in Central Bedfordshire, and that's a 46,000 growth since 2001. The population is expected to increase right through to 2050. To accommodate the growth, new homes are being constructed, many of which are underway. At the moment, the largest household group in Central Bedfordshire is new families, reflecting the growing amount of new housing stock. And that's one of the reasons that we've looked at school transport as in customer pathways quite early on in our journey. Just a bit about our Digital Excellence Programme and the Customer Pathways Project. It's an efficiencies project, so we are looking to remove any manual activity or improve service delivery where we can. One of the major overviews, aims of the programme is to enable all requests to be online. We create forms with inbuilt logic to assess whether a request for service is likely to be successful before submission. All our forms are designed to capture the right information the first time round, where only fully submitted, completed forms can be submitted. And where possible, we signpost users of forms to other options where the request for service does not meet the criteria. It's very important for us that where someone is submitting a form, we want to ensure that they are actually providing all the information and the service is going to be right for them. In the past, when we've done a lot of analysis, we often find that forms are submitted with missing information or people are applying for services that aren't right for them. What we can do using the logic within the forms is to ensure that we capture the right information and signpost them when they're not going to be applicable for the service. We've also introduced taking payments using the Jadu and also making bookings where required. Overview of Jadu. At CBC, we use all the three main products, the CMS, which is using for our internet and intranet, Jadu XFP forms, and the CXM for the workflow. The website moved across to Jadu in July 2019. We actually also moved the intranet. The intranet went back in December previous to that. And we started using Jadu XFP and CXM from February 2020. We launched with our waste services. And shortly after that, COVID came along. So our project, our programme of works actually effectively paused from about March through to about December of the year just gone. What it did allow us to do with the new tool set that we received through Jadu was to quickly implement solutions around COVID-19, particularly around adult social care. But also one of the very things that came out right at the beginning was our clinically extremely vulnerable people. We had a list of around 13 to 15,000 people, and the decision was made to contact all of those people to ensure that they were able to continue without any issues, or if they needed help, for us to provide any help that would be relevant for them. So the original request came through for our contact centre to place 13,000 outbound calls. Now, the contact centre isn't really set up as an outbound, it's an inbound environment. So we looked at ways of being able to speed that up. And what we actually done is we took the 13,000 records, each person was allocated a unique ID, and we've done an SMS campaign using GovNotify, and an email campaign using GovNotify. The email and the SMS went out with a link to a Jadu form. Through the Jadu form, we were collecting through URL injection the unique ID for each individual. What that allowed us to do was have a large amount of people filling in forms quickly via the SMS and the email, where a triage was in place, where the outcome of that triage would be there is no provision of service for the people. We've contacted them. They've confirmed that they're okay. They don't need any help. Where they did need help, whether it be financial support or booking supermarket slots or voluntary help from our neighbourhood colleagues, we could pass that information on quickly. But also what it done is, because of the unique number, we were able to remove all the people that we didn't need to call, so we could concentrate just on contacting the people through telephony. So that was just a quick win that we were able to deliver during COVID right at the beginning. So since we switched on Jadu, we've had 947,000 views of forms. Now, I say views, a form can either be viewed and submitted or just viewed. Because of our triage bit, a form that's viewed and not submitted, often that's a positive, it's good. They've gone through, they've answered some triage questions and we've pointed them in the right direction. Of the 947 forms accessed, 610,000 have turned into Jadu cases. So that indicates that actually it was a request of service. We've got 82 forms published live, of which there's 79 case types. So in just over, a year and 4 or 5 months or so, basically 1 million viewed forms and 610,000 cases. We're up to 45,000 registered citizens, and we've got 390 staff throughout the council using CXM to process cases or requests for service. In addition to that, we've also got 23 users that are third-party users. Some are in the police and some are in our waste services. And we've also got a few others that are around supporting school transport, bus pass printing and similar. We've gone across the council, so we're in pretty much all the areas of the councils. I think the only one we're not really in is revenues and benefits. That's because it's later down in the programme, so we haven't gone into that area of the business yet. In terms of integrations, we have now integrated into Whitespace, which is for our waste services. That was important for us. In the past, when a request for service came in, whether it via a form or via the contact centre, it was keyed into our system and sent across to our contractor. Now, through the integration, any service requests come through, they're directly into the contractor's Whitespace system. The advantage there is also in terms of personal data. The contractor only has to deal with the property information. We keep all the residential information to ourselves. Through the API, we request the service, they provision the service and send a signal back through the API, and then we're able to communicate with the citizen to confirm that provision is in place. So they get constant updates as it's going through. We've integrated through the API into the school transport auto eligibility system, which we're going to go through in a bit. We're into the QRoutes system. This allows us to do walking distance calculations for school transport, and we've also integrated into a company called Euclid, who we use for our bus pass printing. So that's a fully outsourced managed solution where they print our passes. We also, of course, take advantage of the standard integrations, Office 365 for our bookings, our Capita system for payments, and Single Point for postcode lookup. Over and above those integrations, we also take exports using the standard export feature from CXM to extract data and exchange that with other systems. Currently, our school transport is on a RouteWise system, so we're able to export applications, successful applications, and import that into the RouteWise system. And right now, actually, we're working with Jadu to integrate into our coroner's WPC system, and that will automate the publication of coroner's inquests live onto our website. So moving on to school transport, one of the first areas that Customer Pathways was asked to look at was the school transport application form. We were actually asked to revamp the paper form and to put a digital version online. What we had online at the time was a download of a PDF that could be emailed back in, but it wasn't an online interactive form. And in fact, there was more than one form. There were separate forms for special educational needs, separate forms for post-16, separate form for mainstream. So we were very quickly to go and design one single form that, with the logic and the branches, allow you to publish one form catering for all types of application. What we actually found, though, when we went into the service, we are an efficiencies project. So, of course, we were looking for efficiencies. And what we found was actually the main issue that the service had was they were manually processing applications throughout June, July, August. And they were running out of time when you were coming towards the end of August to efficiently plan their routes. And considering that we spend £8 million or more a year on route planning, what we needed to do was actually find a way to allow them to spend time to optimise those routes and reduce that cost. And the easiest way to do that was to remove the administrative burden of processing school transport applications. So when we looked at the actual decision tree around school transport and whether someone actually qualifies or is eligible for school transport, the decision tree is fairly straightforward. It's whether the child is of school statutory age, whether the child is attending the nearest suitable school, the child's age during the relevant school year, the walking distance from the house to the school, whether there's an available route. What I mean by an available route is a suitable route. So if a child had to cross a main road and there was no bridge or no suitable crossing, that would be what we would term as an unavailable route. And then taking into account whether it's a low income, a medical or a SEN application. So the decision tree on the right is fairly binary. Are they of school age, yes or no? Are they going to the nearest suitable school, yes or no? What age are they? If they're under 8, if they live more than 2 miles away from the school, if the walking distance is more than 2 miles, they qualify. Or if they're over 8 and it's more than 3 miles, they qualify. Or if there's no safe route. So in principle, that all looks like a pretty straightforward decision logic tree, and it is really, until you start to work around with the data. So what we needed was a way of actually taking the information that comes out of the school admissions process and taking the information that comes on the application form from the parent applying for school transport, matching the two together to come back with the results. So we engaged methods who work closely with Jadu and ourselves to design a system that would allow that to happen. So the required solution that we asked them for would need to import the school admissions data, the child and which school they're going to, import whether that school is one of their eligible schools, import the school addresses and the coordinates of the school gate, and import a list of unknown unavailable routes. And from this, we can then calculate how many children are likely to be eligible for school transport. So this takes place before any applications are received. So we take the information from the school admissions, we get this system, we run all the information through, and it will say something along the lines of, out the 10,000 children that are changing school or starting school this year, it looks like 1,500 will be eligible for school transport. Then what we needed it to do was to actually connect to Jadu, to the CXM, to take the actual application, retrieve that information and compare it to the eligibility criteria. So can I use my mouse? I can. So what we see here on the left is this is the front screen of the application. And it tells us the details about all the records. So what we're seeing here is that all the records are good. There's no errors. The 0 is telling me that everything's good, apart from we have 1,000 records where there's no information about the catchment school, and that's down to, unfortunately, data quality. So we're working on that, and that's one of the learnings of this. Down on the left, we then move to the configuration screen, and I'm just showing you there that there's the API details to connect to QRoutes, the API details to connect to the Jadu service, the CXM, and then some information around school term dates so that we can do calculations. And then their system goes on to have users who are eligible or who can access this system, the import data screen where we import their data, the analysis that analyzes whether the data is clean, export data to export results, and this very last one, which is process data. That's the bit that actually then collects the applications from Jadu, processes it, and passes back the eligibility criteria. So One of the things that we definitely came across was this walking route. It's actually, we looked at using Google, lots of things, and we couldn't find a reliable way to do it. So we spoke to QRoutes. Now, QRoutes do, actually, their product originally is to do route planning, getting school buses from location A to B and picking up children on the way. But we spoke to them about the walking distance. And they came back to us with the solution which we needed, which is to actually go specifically from the child's address. So from the UPRN, the unique property record number, it calculates the walking distance to the school gate. And it also takes into account whether or not a route is viable on safety grounds. So they built that system for us that allows us to pass the information of the route that we want to map, and they will come back with the walking distance taking into account any safety grounds. So then we moved on to what looks like a very complicated flow. This essentially is our build for, or part of our build for Jadu, typically around CXM. So if I just explain what we've got here. At the top, we've got the application form, which is on XFP. We've got the CXM case, so this is the mapping of the workflow. And then down the bottom, a schematic of the actual system and how we put the data together. So here we can see we've got the school admissions data, which child is going to which school. Then we've got the school catchment, whether that child is going to a school that's their nearest suitable school. And they're CSVs that we get out of our Synergy system, school admissions system, and we upload that into the methods database, methods application. Then we go through the data validation process. So the data validation process is maybe a postcode isn't recognised or a school name is spelt differently or any kind of issues. So the whole system does that, flags errors to us, and we correct those errors until we get to a point where the data is prepared. And at that stage, the whole application, auto eligibility data is stored within the system. So when someone applies for school transport, they fill in the form. The form has logic in it to make sure that it's correct ages and also simple things, just like that they are actually within central Bedfordshire. You'll be surprised the amount of people that apply for school when it's actually in Bedford Borough or Luton, which are neighbouring authorities. So that check takes place there. The CXM case is created, and then there's a transition that puts the case into the status auto eligibility check or pending auto eligibility check. In the background, the method system is automatically or constantly polling our system to find out if there's any cases pending auto ability check. And where it finds them, it pulls the information down, runs the data, and then passes back the results of the auto eligibility check. If the result is eligible, great, happy path, it moves down, it marks them as eligible, and then the workflow takes over, allocates the route, changes it to a status of printing pass. It goes into a status printing pass. Our bus pass printing people are also monitoring the workflow through the API that's looking for cases in the status printing pass. Where they see those, they pull those, they print the envelope, they print the photograph onto the pass, they populate the path with the school, the route, and the expiry date. That gets attached to a covering letter, put in an envelope and posted, so no human involvement there at all. They then print it. When they print it through the API, they write back to us confirmation that they've printed it, and then the workflow automatically sends the email to the parent saying it's eligible and that the pass is on its way. Then the case moves over into it goes over to ready to PACS, which means it's ready to be imported into our school transport system. I should say that currently we use RouteWise. By October, we'll have moved over to a new transport system called PACS. So that's what that's getting ready for. And then PACS itself, we will poll that and import the record into that system. So basically what I'm saying, where there's auto eligibility, where it can be calculated and where they're eligible, the whole process is automated right through to the child's record being put into the school transport system. If they're not eligible, if it's marked as not eligible, it goes up. It goes for manual review. We don't automatically decline people. Anything that's not eligible gets a manual review, and there in the workflow they have a button to mark it as mark it as eligible or not eligible. If it's eligible, it continues, joins this route, and goes through the automated printing. Otherwise, they get the email notification that you're not eligible. These other routes around here are just around data errors. There might be an error on the API call. It will loop round 5 times. If it can't resolve the error, then it goes for manual correction. So that's an overview of actually how the system is built using the transitions, the rules, the statuses to automatically process a school transport application. So looking at the actual CXM case, we can see down here that it's in the status pending auto eligibility. The system then calls it through the API and writes back into the system its findings. So here it's telling me that the age of the child, both at the autumn, the spring and the summer term, is age 11. When their 8th birthday is, we need to know when their 8th birthday is if it's before 8, it's 2 miles is the distance. If it's after 8, the walking distance is 3 miles. We need to know their 5th birthday, statutory age is 5, so if it's before 5th birthday, they're not eligible. It also sends through a URL link to Google Maps. So if I was to click on that link in real life, it would actually go to Google Maps and show the walking route. That can be shared with the parent as well, so they can see the route that we've mapped out to see where the distance is. 16th birthday is there if there's an issue around post 16. Then it comes back with the key thing. The walking distance in this one is literally just over 3 miles, so they do qualify. There's a flag to say whether it's an SAN application, which this isn't. Are they eligible on age? Yes, they are. Are they eligible on catchment? Yes, they are. Is it an unsafe route? This particular one isn't. But are they eligible on walking distance? Yes, they are. So the final eligibility is yes, and therefore it's flagged as eligible. Just to show that if the walking distance wasn't eligible, but an unsafe route had been marked, and then also the final eligibility would come out as eligible. For a non-eligible one, the results obviously come back very similar. So if it's not eligible, it's marked as not eligible. It does go for manual review. Again, we're not automatically declining people here. What we're doing is giving all the information across the team to do the manual review. So again, over here, you can see that it's marked as not eligible. And down here, you can see the reason why. So this one is because of catchment. They're not going to their nearest suitable school, and therefore the final eligibility is no. So the team then go through, there'd be buttons up here to mark as eligible or not eligible. So this one is now marked as not eligible after manual review, and the automated email goes out to the parent explaining why. And the parent can see both the Google URL, so they can see the distance, they can see the actual route, and they can see the individual reason why it was declined. Okay, so the results. Again, I come back to it. The system is aimed at automatically marking cases as eligible. It's not aimed at confirming a case is not eligible. Obviously, it's very important that the system is 100% accurate in marking cases as eligible. Before we went live this year on it, we ran some tests. We randomly took 200 past results from a previous year, fed those into the system and ran the auto eligibility check. The system came back marking one case differently compared to the others that had been done manually. And actually what we found when we looked at it, that the system was correct, and actually it was a manual review that had gone wrong. So there's that extra bit of resilience around the efficiencies of the system. Moving to the actual results this year. So when we set out on this journey, we said, wouldn't it be great if we could get 50% automated? So the actual results, this was taken, I think, around a week ago, after about 1,300 applications. So it automatically marked 53 as eligible. So 53% of all applications were automatically marked as eligible. That's it. No human intervention, bus pass posted, emails out to parents. Not eligible was 17%. So those two combined takes us up to 70%. So 70% of all applications had an immediate automatic response, although we did review the 17%. Very light touch though, it's just a quick review. 21% were marked as eligible, but it couldn't confirm the catchment school. Now that's down to our data integrity. I suppose the good news is that the assessment after that is very quick and easy. It goes into manual review, marked as incomplete. The team review it. A lot of them know the information. They can just look at it and go, that child, that school, that's right. And they just press the button eligible. If they press the button eligible, again, the whole automated process kicks in. If it's not eligible, actually, if they mark it's not eligible, that's also automated. The email goes out to the parent. So we're getting 91% accuracy in terms of eligibility based on the criteria around distances and unsafe routes. We're just falling short on this no catchment bit. 9%, only 9% actually needed a full manual review. That means for whatever reason, it couldn't calculate the eligibility at all. Now, you've got to put this in context. Last year, that would have been 100%. So this year, only 9% needed a full review. 70% were automatically done, and the 21% had a light touch. Now, it's around school names. This is where this has gone slightly awry. School names are in one system different to another system, to another system, to another system. We built it on school names. We will rebuild it this year. It's a small change. We'll move across to school ID. We will have to work with our school admissions, etc., but that should be easily solvable for the next time round. The other area is late applications. People still apply late. They're applying now. We're still getting 20 applications a day. What we plan to do, unfortunately we didn't get there this year just because of time constraints, was when we run the initial calculation of how many children we think are going to be eligible for school transport, we can start to do a marketing campaign targeting the parents and making it easy for them to apply. So that's, I think that's it on school transport. And Brina, is there any questions being asked?
Yeah, there's one question. Please do pop your questions in the chat before we move on to other areas Central Beds have been working on, so particularly about school transport. We have one from Tom at Tailwind. Hi, Tom. If a payment is required, Aubrey, when does that fit in, if it does, into the process?
So we do have payments required around post-16 applications and also concessionary applications. I'll take the concessionary first. They go through a different process. There is actually a separate concessionary form. So this is where people haven't been successful in applying for school. They're not eligible for free school transport, and they need to make a payment for a concessionary. Yes, we have a separate form for that. We publish that only when we've gone through the process or to a stage where we know what the loadings are on the school's buses. And we will advertise and allow people to purchase effectively spare space on the buses. At that stage, we'll publish a form and we will take payment on application. So people will apply, pay, then we'll assess it, and then we will actually allocate a route or potentially go down a refund. We did talk about whether we should take the request for the seat, evaluate it, then ask for payment. So there is that alternative method. We can do that, in which case, and I think, because we haven't actually switched it on this year, I think that's the route we're going to go down, which is to actually take it, not take payment, assess it, then give people through the workflow 3 days to pay. If they pay within 3 days, we'll send them a link. That will hit a payment form. If they don't pay after 3 days, we can go to the next person on the list as if there's any seats available. So for post-16, there are some chargeable events. Again, that has to fit outside of this. We would have to ask for payment afterwards. The way the payments work, either a form has payment or it doesn't have payment. So this one doesn't have payment. We have to go through a different payment process, so it would happen after the application.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks, Aubrey. Very detailed answer. Is there a way of knowing how much time or money, or just generally how more efficient this process is now it's automated?
Yes, we need. See these figures you got on the screen here. We needed these answers first, so we've just got them. We haven't finished with this year. Okay. Clearly, all right. If we just talk about bus passes, printing of bus passes. Previously, they used to come through. The photograph would have come through an email. That email has to be stored locally. Then the assessment takes place. Then they are assessed as being eligible. Then the photo, the child's information needs to be added onto a separate spreadsheet, cross-referenced against the file name of the photo. That photo is then compiled up into batches of 50s that were then sent across to the printing person. That in itself has gone. There is no printing. It's done. It's automated. So we will be able to quantify that. In terms of actually the eligibility, I haven't done it yet, but clearly half the workload has disappeared. These 53% are automatically eligible. They've gone. There is no, that's it. So that's half of the workload gone. The 17 not eligible, you could argue that's pretty much automated. It's just a very light review. And even this 21% is a very light review. So I would argue that 91% of them, 70%, right, let's go back. 53% no touch, 17% light touch, 21% light touch. We haven't run the numbers yet. we will run the numbers, but it's going to be considerable.
Brilliant. There's definitely evidence of efficiencies there, Aubrey. We can see that illustrated.
Yeah,
great. We don't have any more questions on the transport element. Aubrey, are you able to talk through some of the other work you're doing in the council at the moment?
Yeah, I've just picked out two. One, because I was interested in it when we first got the request, which is around e-petitions. We already have an e-petition system, but there's for whatever reason, we were approached to deliver a new way of doing it. So we had a look at Jadu, and we actually built a way to do e-petitions. So an e-petition is a collect signature online. Anyone who lives, works or studies in central Bedfordshire can submit a request to create a petition. So we had to do that bit first to create a petition. And then actually go through the process of signing the petition and confirming that the person that's signing that permission is using a valid email address. So here's the front page of the first form. This is to request a petition. So you give the petition a title, the details of what the petition is about, any supporting information, the organisation name, and then on the next page it just asks, contact details, email address, etc. I've got another one of these big diagrams, but basically this is again the outline of the Jadu build to support both requesting an e-petition and signing an e-petition. So the requester fills in a Jadu form that captures the details. It creates a case in Jadu, and that puts it into review by the governance team. The governance team review it, and if it's not suitable or for whatever reason, they can reject it, and that will send an email back to the requester saying, sorry, it's been declined. If they are going to accept it, do they want to edit the text? If they want to edit the text, so maybe they just want to reword some words or whatever, but don't actually change the intent of the petition, they can do so. So they'll edit that, and then they'll set it live. And when they set it live, it asks for a start date and an end date, an expiry date of the petition. And then that generates a unique link, and that link effectively is a link to a form where someone's going to sign it, with a URL injection for the case reference number for this petition. So we have a link going to a form to sign, and that link injects the case reference number for the petition. So this person comes in, they go to the website, they click on the link with the URL injection, and that goes through to form number 2 where they can sign the petition. When they hit that form, it uses the CXM case reference number and goes back and gets the wording for that petition and populates it onto the next page, so the customer that's signing it can see the wording that they're signing up for. And it also checks the start date and the end date for the petition, so if it's closed, it will actually put them to a dead end saying, no, sorry, it's closed. So when they submit that creates a second case called a signed e-petition, and within that case, it's obviously got the case reference number for the master one, for the actual petition, and the wording, etc. And when they hit submit on that, it creates also a unique reference number. There's a generator within XFP that generates a unique reference number. And that sends an email back to the signature saying, thanks very much for signing the petition. You now need to confirm your email address. So that has a link. They click on the link, and that generates, or that connects to form 3. And then in form 3, it checks the date, is the e-petition still open? And also it checks that the reference number that's coming through, the unique reference number, matches the unique reference number for that case and for that e-petition. It also checks to see whether the unique reference number has already been used if someone's trying to sign it twice. So you can only sign it once. Assuming the case reference number matches and the unique reference number matches, it updates the signed case to say that it's a valid signature. And that's how that works. And then once the petition is finished, our governance team, using the standard export functionality, export all the signed cases. They can remove any duplicates. If someone has signed it using an email 3 times, it will actually remove the duplicates, and then they can publish the results. So this is a whole e-petition process that we had a system that we were paying for, and we've actually been able to use Jadu now. This is live. Where we're actually taking e-petitions, both the request to create an e-petition, the signatory bit, the running of the reports, and the results of the petition is all being done there. So I thought I'd share that with you. And
on Aubrey, just quickly, are they quite popular, the e-petitions, would you say?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. They tend to be very localised, so it will be an issue pertaining to maybe a housing estate or a new area or anything, or a crossing, they tend to be very very popular. And I can't remember. I think there has to be, if there's 100 signatories, it then moves on to the next stage, which is for councils to review and discuss.
And again, another example of efficiencies, I guess, if you were paying for a service before. Example.
Exactly. So that's just got rid of another system. It's gone, the license fee. Yeah. So that's e-petition. The other one I just wanted to show you, this is one of the first that we done. And again, this was about efficiencies, as usual. I do want to point out, although we're saying efficiencies, this is also massive improved customer service as well. People are doing it online, they're getting quick responses, they're getting updates, and they've also got an account so they can see what's happening. I won't go through the details because I'm mindful of time, but there's a load of business rules about applying for temporary event notice. For those of you that don't know, a temporary event notice, if you want to run maybe a charity evening in the village hall and you want to sell alcohol, you have to apply for a temporary event notice. There's certain business rules that you need to meet, so you need to give 7 days notice or something like that. You can't have more than 500 people. You can't do more than 50 if you're a license holder, or 10 if you're not a license holder. So all those business rules and logic are all built into the form. So again, you can only submit a form that's meets the criteria, and also it does take payment as well. In the old way that we had this, people were filling in a form, going off to do payments separately, coming back to the form, putting the payment reference number in. So this is all built in. On the right there, that's the manual touch. That's the way they were processing it. So if we look at the next slide, each one of these red boxes, and again, I won't go into detail, but each one of these red boxes were a manual process. So get the paper form, they used to print it, open an email, put it in a folder, reconcile the payments, whether it came via check or whether it was online or whether there was no payment, chase the payment, all kinds of things, put it together, key it into a system, type some emails, send the emails to the police and to other third parties that are allowed to review it and place objections on it. So the process that actually this turned into was the customer goes online, they fill in the form with all the logic in there to make sure it's a eligible request, make payment, so they can't submit without making payment. When that comes in, the system automatically sends email notifications to the consultees. For us, that's our pollution team and also the police. So the police get an email with a link in it. When they click on that link, it takes them directly to the case. They're set up as third-party CXM users, so they are logging into CXM. And when they go into CXM, they see the case, they see all the details, and they've got two buttons at the top, make an objection or no objection. And also within the workflow, it's built that it allows 3 working days. So if there's no response after 3 working days, it just moves on anyway. If there's no objection, it moves on. And we know from the past that 98% or over 98% of temporary event notices don't have an objection. So it waits 3 days or it gets confirmation back from both that there's no objection. It automatically generates the email and it sends the email back to the customer saying your temporary event notice has been confirmed. So we move from this whole manual process to this fully automated process, and actually it goes on to populate a directory of temporary event notices that have been provided. And I think that's me. Yes.
Thank you. And we've got one final question from Andrew, actually, from QRoutes, in terms of changing number of bus passes issued via the Jadu system compared to the more manual approach. I don't know if you're able to answer that one, Aubrey.
Sorry, what was the question?
So the question is, the maps in QRoutes are provided by Ordnance Survey and are highly accurate. Has there been any change in the number of bus passes issued via the Jadu system compared to the previous more manual approach?
It's too early to say. I don't think I'd be able to say yet, really.
Okay, not a problem.
What I would say is I know you're getting an accurate figure. The QRoutes one is taking it right from the address right through to the school gate. The manual review, and I used to see how they were doing the manual review, was very much looking at Google Maps and, plotting postcode, and the accuracy, the human doing it, interacting with Google Maps was nowhere near as accurate as a UPRN to school gate. And Over and above that, QRoutes have delivered something called QPaths, which we're not actually actively using yet. But QPaths allows you to mark areas that are unavailable to walk through. We want to use that. We're not into that yet. Currently, the way we're judging unavailable routes is based on 4,000 previous records. So we check to see if there was a previous unavailable route based on postcode to school, and we're using that as our logic check. This new QPaths tool will allow us to actually accurately use the unavailable routes.
Brilliant, great, thank you. And we'll be wrapping it up there. Thank you very much, Aubrey, for your time today. Fascinating presentation. Any questions that we've not answered, please don't worry, we will be reaching out to you to make sure we've answered any of those questions. Thank you again, Aubrey. Please do join us for our next session, which is at 2:15 with Tom Nichols, and we'll be talking about CXM and CXM updates. Thank you all for your engagement and for joining, and see you all soon.